Hey, pod people. Welcome to another episode of Why Do People Do That?
Why do people do that? Today's episode, we're going to be talking about participation trophies.
Why do people argue about participation trophies? What are the different sides? What's the debate about? And what is the right answer?
I don't know that we're going to come up with a right answer.
Well, we'll do our best.
There is a right answer, though.
Well,
There is actually a right answer.
We think so,
Yes.
but let's debate it. Let's talk about it,
Okay.
and let's see where we land. Maybe we'll change our own minds. Who knows?
Wow.
Okay, so I think our assignment to ourselves was to do some research this week.
Yes.
So that we're not just talking about this from the perspective of our own opinion and what we think, right? We want to talk about not only what we think in terms of our psychological expertise and background and education. We also want to talk about it from the lens of our own experiences as people and as parents. And we also want to bring in our research and our findings and what we think about that.
And we were talking about this before. What's really interesting is there's not a lot of research. I mean, you look up participation trophies and there's a lot of opinion on it, but there's less kind of evidence-based facts about the impacts of participation trophies on kids and development.
Yeah, there really is nothing in terms of empirical research on that in particular. So what I did, just to be creative, what I looked at as I look at participation trophies, and this is just sort of how I went about it, I looked at it theoretically from the perspective of positive reinforcement. So I look at it like these children are being rewarded or positively reinforced for their behavior. And so what's the behavior? The behavior is participating.
Showing up, being a part of a team,
right? So
practicing.
Let's pick something as an example so we can make it more tangible for our listeners and our viewers. So let's just say soccer or basketball. Let's pick a sport.
Basketball.
Basketball. All right. That works for me. So let's say there's a basketball team and there's a bunch of kids on a basketball team. And at the end of the season, they go to awards night. And at awards night, it's, trophies are handed out for a variety of different things, right? I know that my kids play basketball, and I know your daughter plays soccer and softball, right? So do you guys have awards nights? Okay. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I think mostly across the board at awards night, they're not just getting an award for showing up, they're getting an award for lots of different things, right? Right? There's like the MVP, there's the kid who scored the most points, there's
most improved, there's
lots of different categories, right? But everyone gets that little, like if it's basketball, everyone's got like the little guy playing basketball, right? Like my daughter used to do gymnastics, so at awards night, everybody would go away with a little gymnast on a stick, like the little gold gymnast. So everyone's got that little thing, but not everybody gets, right, the big ones, like
award. The first, second, third place awards.
Okay, so what I'd like to do first is, because I'm on the side of I'm pro participation trophy, right? So what I'd like to do is I'd like to try to first look at the other side, because that's what's creating the debate. What's creating the debate is there's a lot of people out there that are totally anti
participation
trophies. So let's talk about that. And I think you can definitely speak to that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been asking people at work, friends of mine, and, it makes kids soft is, one of the big arguments.
So let's talk about what that means. What does it mean for a kid to be soft?
It's funny because that was the opinion of several men, which, kind of don't value mental health and emotional well-being, and to be, not to be soft, to be unable to kind of to cry, I guess, going back to some of our other discussions.
Yeah, I think that gender role probably, or gender expectations could potentially play a role here. I definitely do hear women say it, but you're probably right. We would have to do a research study to know for sure.
Actual research.
Ooh, let's do that. That would be fun. I'd like to do a research study. But yes, I mean, for sure, there's definitely that, you know, kind of macho kind of um, attitude, right? That it isn't okay, or that it isn't, not that it's not okay, but that it isn't helpful to your child to just not allow them the experience of not being good enough, or not being the winner, or not getting the award. I think that's sort of where they're coming from when I speak to people. And I think that's what you're talking
Mm-hmm.
about, right? That feeling of, you know, you're giving them the trophy for participating because you want to protect them from the feeling they'll have about not getting a trophy. And so you're giving my child this trophy because you think they can't handle not getting the trophy. I don't think that that's helpful to my child, because you're going to make my child soft. How are they going to learn
That life is unfair,
that
that you're
life,
not always going to win, you're not going to get the job, you're not going to always get, you know, the part in the play.
yeah, you're not always going to get the trophy, right? And so, but where they're coming from, which I don't, you know, I don't want to bash it or say it's wrong, because I think there's merit to it, right? To say, I want my child to be prepared for life. I want them to know that,
You don't get awards for just showing up.
yeah, and you, but we're going to come back to that, because I disagree. That you don't, you know, go through life always getting what you want. And you're not always going to be the best. And you're not always going to make the team. And you're not always going to get the promotion, right? Not everyone gets to be the CEO, right? Only one guy gets to be the CEO.
I just have to be a guy.
Yeah, it's just life. Yeah. Well, I'm a CEO. I'm a girl. So there you go.
They just appointed the CEO to my hospital, and she's a woman.
Yeah, there you go. That's a whole other
Podcast.
conversation. We can come to that. But I think when I was saying guy, I was just sort of like using guy to represent person,
General, yes.
people. Why, you know? So anyway, what was I saying?
Not everyone gets to be the CEO or get the part or
Right.
gets to win.
Right. Only one guy, I said, gets to be the CEO. So that being said, there's going to be disappointment in life. And so I think when we go back to whether it's the dad or the mom, the guy or the girl, whoever, the person that says, don't make my kids soft by giving them the participations trophy, I think what they're saying is, you're giving my kid the trophy because you don't want them to cry. You don't want them to be sad. You don't want them to be disappointed. You're avoiding emotion. You're avoiding feeling. So what do you think about that? Do you think that's realistic, not realistic? What's your take on it?
I think that kids are exposed to losing. Like, they know they're not the best. They know
Yeah.
that that kid is better than them. They know that, you know, they've seen it. They're not picked in gym class, or they don't get the part in the play. I mean, they're exposed to not winning and not getting awards for everything. So I think, you know, this is to look at it from that perspective. Like, I think you want to kind of reward them for trying, for doing their best. And I think there's a difference between a participation trophy and a I just showed up trophy versus, like, you know, the kid who puts their all into it and really tries and is really into it. I mean, they just might not have the intrinsic ability that some of the other kids do.
That's a really good point. You know, and what I think about when you bring that up is it brings me back to my own experience as a parent. You know, so when I go back and I think back to when my kids were smaller, right? So my son, who's now 24, and my stepdaughter, who's now 22, both played basketball. Okay. So my son, as you know, was the shortest kid in his grade, right? He was very small, but very motivated and wanted so badly to just be good at something.
I remember you taking him for private lessons.
Yes, and he asked me for that because he wanted so badly to make the basketball team, and I knew in my heart, like, it was never going to happen. Because he was literally the shortest kid in the grade, and you got literally, and I'm not even exaggerating, 90 kids showing up to try out for the basketball team that only 15 kids make. And there's no way that the shortest boy in the grade is making the basketball team when there's that much competition, right? And so he wanted to try, and I wanted to offer him as much opportunity as he could if he was willing to try. So he did go to clinics and lessons and practiced outside, and he tried so hard. And now there's my stepdaughter on the other hand, and I don't want to in any way put her down, because it wasn't that she didn't try. She practiced, she was into it, but did she put in as much as my son?
The same kind of
I
effort
mean, not
and
even
drive. Yep.
close, not even close. However, she was one of the tallest in her grade, and very, just by nature, a very athletic kid. Like, she is the kid where you can literally hand her a golf club. She's never swung a golf club before, and she will just stand there without any instruction, and she will swing the club perfectly, which blows my mind because I just can't do it. No matter how hard I try, I can't figure out how to hold a club or swing it or hit a ball. I just give up. But that's, again, a whole other conversation about me playing golf. But, she made the team, was one of the best players on the team, scored the most points. Like, she was the team hero. That was her experience, right? So, I mean, on trophies night, she's getting all the trophies, right? She's that kid that everyone's putting her on their shoulders, and they're like, go,
Yay,
Julia.
You scored the most points. You won the game for us.
Right. Like, she would score 52 points in one game. And like, for my son, it's like, I think his best game was he got 5 baskets and scored 10 points. And I think that was probably the best day of his life. Right. And that meant more to him than any participation trophy he ever got. Right. Because there's that experience of getting the basket, right? And everyone being like, yeah, and your teammates slapping you 5, that moment means everything.
Yeah.
Whether you get that participation trophy or not, right? And so he busted his ass trying so hard. Of course, he didn't make the team, but he did play other teams that you didn't have to try out for at school. He played his PAL team and his CYO team and some other team we signed up for that I don't remember what it was called now. He deserved that participation trophy because he really tried. He did his best. He was constantly working on himself. And for me, I look at it like, and again, not that Julia didn't deserve the trophy for being the MVP. She was an awesome basketball player, and she really was important to her team. So she deserved that honor. But why, if we really want to take a look at, what are we honoring in society and what do we value in society? Why is she more valuable than he is?
Because it's looking at the outcome and not the process.
Right. And so I understand that if you're looking at it from the perspective of this is a team and their goal is to win, obviously we're going to value the players that are going to win, right? They're going to score the most points because that's what we're here for, right? We're here to score the points.
And I think there's a very big difference between competitive sports when you get older versus younger kids and these PAL teams.
Yeah. But even them, right? It's all about they want to win. They want to, yay, we won. Like, that's the goal.
Yeah,
the
of course.
goal is to win. So I get why that's valued. But if we're going to talk about it in terms of, are we preparing our kids for life? Are we preparing them for later on? My perspective, I guess, as a therapist, if I think about my clients, the people that I work with, the kids, the adults, when I look at the adults and I look at their experience throughout their lives and we go back to their childhood, or look at the kids that I currently work with and the parents and the parenting that may be good or not good, I really, 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 really believe that rewarding effort and not outcome is really preparing you for life.
Absolutely.
Better than just rewarding outcome. So again, I'm not saying we should never reward outcome. I think that sometimes it is absolutely important and makes sense. But at the end of the day, you're going to be a more successful human in this society if you really, really keep trying. And going back to what I started to talk about before of positive reinforcement, right? I mean, if we just go back to Skinner, right, who really came up with the whole concept of behavior and positive and negative reinforcement, right? he talks about, human behavior and how we just naturally continue to do the things that we are rewarded to do.
But then let me ask you a question.
Yes.
So now, does the people, the first place, the MVP, what's to stop them from saying, you know what, why am I even trying so hard and working for this when everyone is getting the same trophy?
They're not getting the same trophy.
But everyone's getting an award. Everyone's getting recognized.
An award, but not everyone's getting the same award, right? So I call bullshit on anyone who says that the kid getting the participation trophy,
That sad little ribbon.
right, the medal or the, there's just the generic dude on the
The balance
pole,
beam or
right?
whatever.
Exactly. I mean, we've got a ton of them at home. They're not getting the same sense of satisfaction out of that award as, and again, going back to my son as an example, right? My son never got anything other than the participation trophy. He never got the MVP, the most points, the most improved, the blah, 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 blah. Never got any of that. One time when he was playing Little League, he got the ball, the
Game ball?
the game ball, right? And, he kept trying and kept trying and kept trying to go further to get that. And there was definitely a lot of disappointment and sadness and existential crisis around who am I? What am I good at? Am I ever going to be good enough? And that participation trophy didn't cure that for him. It didn't make him say, I'm awesome. I don't have to try harder at anything because look how good I am. I got this. It meant nothing to him, right? Other than, I accomplished something. And I would say to him, you know what, Brandon, you accomplished something amazing because you know what? It's not easy for you, right? You sometimes feel bad about yourself. You sometimes have anxiety. Sometimes just getting to the game is hard. I mean, we had our days when he would just be like, I don't know if I want to go today. What if I miss a pass? What if I don't score any points? What if? And we would really have to talk him up. Just for him just showing up and getting through the season without quitting was an amazing accomplishment. And that participation trophy, I felt, was validating in a sense of it's important to follow through. It's important to show up. It's important to be at every practice. It's important to be at every game. It's important to follow through with your commitments, even when it's hard. And I felt like that's what the participation trophy was. It was, look at that. Look what you got. Because you know what? You did it. You finished it. You followed it through. You saw it through. You accomplished it. You got through to the end. You finished the season. Now you get to decide if you want to try it again or try something else. But good for you because this was not easy for you.
But does it mean less when everyone's getting them? Because you know how hard it was for Brandon to do that. But for other kids that didn't have the same kinds of challenges, that just walked away with it, does it mean any less for him to have, to get it and to see other kids getting it when he knows how hard he worked for that?
I don't think so. I don't think he looked at the other kids getting the participation trophy and saying, well, oh, they got it too, so it doesn't mean anything. I definitely think that it wasn't enough for him because he looked at it like, I want that. I want the trophy that only one kid is getting. So I think that even though he got the participation trophy, it didn't kill his motivation to want to try harder.
Which is one of the arguments against participation trophies, is that it takes away kids' motivation because everyone's walking away with the little gold gymnast statue.
Right, but again, I call bullshit on it because they all know
it's not as big and fancy.
We're all getting this. We're all getting it because we're here.
We showed up.
We're here. We showed up. We stuck it through for the whole season. We worked together as a team, and we're all getting recognized for that. But it doesn't stop him from working harder and wanting to do more because he wants that recognition that other kid's getting. Right? He's looking at that kid with envy and saying, I want to be just like you. I want to be better. I want to do better. I want to be the person scoring the most points. I want to be the person that everyone's like, oh, yes, Brandon's on my team this season. I'm so excited. He's amazing. He wanted to be that kid, and the participation trophy did not take it away from him. It didn't kill his motivation. It didn't kill his urge to try harder. Because I think on some level, they all know it's bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it does at least acknowledge you
The
did
effort was put in.
something, right? He had that to put on a shelf in his room, and he did have this little shelf that these little trophies would sit on. And I wonder, if we think of things in terms of visualization, right? And we know that visualization is helpful in terms of goal setting and reality creating, right?
Like vision boards and having those pictures and yep.
Right. And so when he walks into his room and he sees those trophies, is it at least sending him a message that he is accomplishing something and that his efforts do matter, but not so much to the point that it's shutting him down and making him think like, I don't have to try harder. And it also isn't going to shield him from real life, because let me tell you something. Real life punched him in the face more time, many times, that a participation trophy wasn't going to protect him from. I wish it could. I wish it was that simple to say, oh, my son had a perfect, charmed life because he got a participation trophy. If anything, it was just like
it didn't turn him into an entitled narcissist.
Oh my God. I mean, for me, it was thank God. Thank God somebody's saying, good job, Brandon. Thanks for being here. He needed that.
Yeah.
He needed that so badly.
Yeah.
So much. And so I think that positive reinforcement in this case is good, because I think it is important to reward effort and not outcome, right? Because I think in life, those of us who succeed with whatever it is we've set out to accomplish, if we learn that we keep trying and we keep trying and we keep trying, and even if the outcome isn't good, it doesn't mean that your efforts go unnoticed or unrewarded, or that they were meaningless, or that they provide nothing for you in your life or your future, right? What did you get out of the effort you put in, even though you didn't achieve, the outcome you wanted, right? So what's an example of that, right? I started several businesses in my life that failed, right? It was one after the other. I had this entrepreneurial spirit, and I really wanted to be in this business world, even though I really enjoy helping people. I kind of always wanted a little bit more. How can I help people on a larger scale? How can I help people, in all different creative ways? And I enjoy the idea of business. And if I had failed at a business and said, I'm a failure, this outcome sucks, so therefore I suck, and that was the end of everything, where would I be? I wouldn't be sitting here right now with you, right? So for me...
You'd be in your garage office.
Yeah, right, exactly. For me, I tried and I failed, but let's learn something from it. Why did I fail? What did I do wrong? What did I do right?
But I think you're an adult versus, we're talking participation trophies for children.
Right. So if we bring this back to children and preparing them for life, what are we really teaching them when we teach them to reward effort and not outcome?
What are we teaching them? We're teaching them the value of their effort, the importance of continuing to try.
Going.
Yep, the motivation to kind of strive for the MVP award. You
Yeah.
got the little small gold guy, but you really want the big one.
Right. But you know what? Even like for me, even though you failed at this business, what did you do right? What did you do well? Right? What was my participation trophy? In every business that failed, if I were to, symbolize it in terms of a trophy, a participation trophy, what did I bring to the table that worked?
Yeah, lessons.
What lessons did I learn? What did I get out of it?
What worked, what didn't work?
And how can I bring that into the next thing? And if I started a business and it failed, and the message around me was just like, you're not good enough, you failed, you're a loser, you're just not measuring up, you get nothing, you get no pat on the back, you get no kudos, would I have any motivation to keep going, right? So my argument, the way I see it, is that pat on the back, even when someone's not the MVP, doesn't kill their motivation to keep going or make them less prepared. I think it does quite the opposite. I think it helps them to see that, every little step you take forward brings you forward. So you can either just keep going with that, or you can say, I want more, right? But I think if you are told you're worthless and you get nothing while you sit back and watch all the people who did the best get rewarded, only the best get rewarded and everybody else gets squat, then doesn't that do the opposite? Doesn't that shut the person down and make them feel like, what's the point? Why try? Right? So like a couple of days ago, I sat down and ordered gifts for my staff, right? I've got
All of them?
all of them,
Not just the best ones?
all of
Not
them.
just your highest earners and your most...
The ones who see the most patients and the highest numbers and the best retention. Everyone got a gift.
Everyone gets a gift.
So what would happen if I only got a gift for the therapists that see the most patients or have the highest show-up rate or have the best retention? What would happen?
There would be resentment.
Yeah.
There would be feelings.
Yeah. They would be like, so you don't
Value what I
me.
do.
You don't value what I do. Because every one of them has a story and there's a reason, you know, why maybe some of them have higher numbers than the other. And there could be a million reasons why that is that we don't need to get into, right? So what are the rewards for the people who do have the best retention and do have the highest numbers?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, they get a raise.
Maybe.
They maybe get a promotion. They get an opportunity to have a supervisory role at the counseling center. And they earn more because they're seeing more people, right? There's lots of rewards.
And there's the internal validation, like, wow, I'm doing really well at my job.
Right,
Like,
exactly. I'm doing a great job, right? That feeling of, oh, I scored 5 baskets today. Like the reward my son got that day that he got 5 baskets and scored 10 points. I will bet you he still remembers that day. Right now, he probably remembers that day. And the day he scored the winning goal for his hockey team, he did roller hockey. And it was like the playoff game. And there was like, the game was almost over and it was like tied. And then all of a sudden he got a goal. I think it might literally be the only goal he got ever in his career of playing hockey. He never scored a goal.
but he kept playing.
So the one time he scored a goal, it was like a really important goal. Like those moments mean everything. And I think as humans, we want those moments. We want that win. We want that, I helped the patient. Or look at my paycheck this month. Or look at my retention rate. Look at how well I'm doing. People must really value the work that I do. I'm making a difference for people. I'm good at what I do. And I don't think that, you know, me giving them a gift basket, even if they don't have great numbers, is going to stop them from being motivated. But maybe they're going to be disappointed when I need to hire a new supervisor. So I need to elevate somebody. I can't elevate everybody, right? I'm going to have to pick one person to elevate as my next supervisor. Who's that going to be?
The person with the highest retention, the highest numbers, the
person that seems to really know what they're doing the most, that seems to be really motivated, that's there, that's present, that's prioritizing the work, that's going to trainings, that's learning, that's growing as a professional, right? That person I'm going to elevate, not necessarily that person, but that person still got a gift basket.
their participation trophy for the holidays.
They're still getting their participation trophy for participating in my practice and seeing my patients and trying their best, because their best might not be the same as their best for a variety of reasons. And it doesn't really matter what those reasons are. I think that we all have our own level of motivation. And I think we all have our own history with where our motivation does or doesn't come from. Right? I think a lot of it has to do with our relationships with ourselves growing up.
And internal motivation is much more effective than the external motivators, than that small little gold trophy. We should have brought a little trophy. We needed a prop.
I'm sorry. You can pretend this is.
No, it's not the same.
Yeah, so I think that I think what that trophy does is I think that it definitely lends itself to the positive reinforcement of, you know, showing up to every practice, finishing out the season, coming to all of the games, being a part of the team is valued, right? It's important to value that. And I don't believe that not valuing that and not giving the trophy is going to create a better outcome for the child. But to play devil's advocate, right? So we both did some research this week, and we found, I did find a lot of research to validate empirical research to
Actual
actual
evidence-based
evidence-based
studies.
studies that talk about positive reinforcement and how they do elicit motivation and positive behaviors and bring about what we're looking for. I was not able to find
Anything supporting the opposite opinion of it makes children soft. It creates entitled children who figure just showing up will get them the job. It creates narcissists who think that they're special just because they're special for no real special reason.
Right, because the reality is they're experiencing a whole life that's going on outside of the sport and the participation trophy that is full of challenges, disappointments, rejections. They're failing a test. They have a friend group who rejected them. They asked a friend for a play date and the friend said no, and then they found that that friend was playing with somebody else. They went on Snapchat and saw a Snapchat story of all their friends at the beach and they weren't invited. They're living a whole life outside of the sport and participation trophy that is teaching them all of these lessons. And so if we can hand them a win and say, hey, you did a good thing here, you put the phone down, you got out of bed, you stopped playing a video game,
got off the phone,
you ran around a gym and bounced the ball, you showed up, you followed through on your commitment, this is a good thing. So positively reinforcing that is a positive thing. But again, to play devil's advocate, right? So I definitely looked for the other side because I wanted to honor and respect the other side. I want to understand the other side, and I want to give the other side a chance to have a voice. So let's talk about
I've got notes.
Some of the opinions we saw on the other side, and let's give those opinions a real shot, and let's give it some merit, and let's really talk about what we think about those things.
Okay, arguments against participation trophies. Critics argue participation trophies can diminish the motivation to strive for excellence. If all children receive the same award, regardless of performance, they might not feel compelled to improve.
Okay.
And again, we're not talking about the same award. We're still acknowledging the MVP and the first place and the most baskets. We're talking just a honorable mention kind of thing.
Yeah, so I guess to speak to that, if you have a scenario where they don't acknowledge those kids that are standing out and they are literally just giving everyone the exact same award and they're not acknowledging anyone else or anything, and that's all that you get, then I think there is a possibility that that could be a negative positive reinforcement, right? Because positive reinforcement can have negative effects if it's not done properly. So this would be a situation where you're positively reinforcing showing up, but you're negatively by giving them the positive reinforcement of showing up without acknowledging the special efforts or the special talents
of certain individuals,
players and certain individuals, right? We are kind of sending them the message that that doesn't matter, right? Which could then have a negative effect, because then what you're teaching everybody is that it doesn't matter how hard you work. It doesn't matter how hard you try. It doesn't matter how talented you are.
You're all
Everyone
getting
gets the same
small
acknowledgement.
award.
And I don't think that's good for anyone, right? So if that's happening, then I would agree that that's bad, right? So, because in reality, like I said before, somebody gets the promotion. Somebody gets to be the CEO. Everyone doesn't get to be the CEO, right? Like
not everyone gets the job.
There could be 5 different people competing for the same job, but only one person is going to get it. And that is life. And so I think that it does motivate us to try harder when we know that there's going to potentially be a positive outcome to trying harder. If you get nothing from trying harder, then why try harder?
Mm-hmm.
But if you get nothing for not trying at all, but if you get nothing for trying at all, why try at all?
Yeah.
Right? And so I think the middle ground is give everybody the pat on the back for showing up, following through, trying hard, putting forth their best effort, but give that special award to the talented people and honor their talents, because I think that is important for everybody. What else you got?
Unrealistic expectations. Some believe that giving trophies for participation can create unrealistic expectations about success in life, where not everyone gets a reward for just showing up.
Okay. What do you think about that? We kind of talked about it a little bit.
Yeah, I think it crosses over into what you were just saying. It's not setting, I mean, there are so many other lessons in life that kids are realizing this. They understand that the little small guy on the pole is not the same as the MVP. So it's not.
Yeah. I mean, I wish, I wish I could say that there's a way we could put our kids in a bubble and have them never experience adversity. But even when you are putting forth your best effort as a parent to give your child the most perfect situation in life you could possibly give them, unexpected things show up.
We can't control everything.
Right? There's things that happen in their lives that are painful and hard. And I think that's universal. I don't think that there's one kid that goes through life unscathed.
No.
Right? Everyone's got at least one little scar from something. I mean, I just sat through a 6-day training in a room full of therapists learning how to do a very intense trauma-based modality of therapy. And every single therapist in that room, we all had to practice on each other. Everyone had trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Every single person had at least a little T trauma that they
Any of them about not winning the award?
No. No, none of it was about getting the award or not getting the award. However, I will say a lot of them, their issue was never feeling good enough, being put down by a narcissistic parent, never feeling rewarded for the things that they did. So I would tend to argue that there's a lot more of the opposite going on, and always feeling like you're not enough. I mean, like, one of the things that you have to do in part of this therapy modality is to talk about what is a positive cognition we want to believe about ourselves. And so a lot of these therapists, they came up with a positive cognition of I am enough. I am good enough. I'm okay the way I am, because a lot of the pain and scars that they were working through in the
messages they got in childhood was
all coming from the messages, and
good enough.
Some of the traumas were teachers shaming them in front of the whole classroom, the narcissistic parent constantly telling them that they weren't good enough, comparing themselves to a sibling that was bullying them and putting them down all the time and making fun of them, right? There's constant messages that people get growing up that really tell them that they're just not good enough. They're not enough. There's so much of that, and it creates, I mean, my witness to it in 30 years of being a therapist and all the patients I've worked with, what I've seen coming in on my couch, right, sitting right across from me over and over and over again, year after year after year, is I'm not good enough. I got this message in life. And this is all different ages. This is millennials,
you formed this belief
Generation
early
Z,
on.
Generation X, the boomers, all of them, right? So this isn't age specific, and it's not generation specific, right? This is the human condition, right? Everyone at any age can have a narcissistic parent who tells them that they're not enough, or a teacher, or a sibling, or
they're just forming that opinion about themselves for whatever reason.
Because they have their own internal struggle. Maybe they have a learning disability, or maybe they're not athletic and they really wish that they were, right? There could be so many experiences that create this feeling of I'm not enough, which creates low self-esteem, depression, anxiety, right? It's really so embedded in who we are in this society, in American society at the very least, right? This feeling of inadequacy that shows up in so much of what we do. So I wish it was that simple to say, let's give participation trophies and then nobody will ever have to experience this pain. It's just not. It's just not. What else?
Misguided messaging. Opponents argue that it sends a message that effort alone is sufficient for success, which may not prepare kids for real-world competition.
So
I've got pages and pages of these.
okay. So if effort alone is not enough, what else is there? What else is important? What else do we need besides effort?
Well, I guess because, I mean, they're talking effort versus outcome.
Right. So what outcomes are we looking for that's important in addition to effort?
I mean, if you're talking sports, you're talking about the win. But I think it's also looking at life. But I think it's, the lessons that you learn from being a part of a team sport, like the cooperation and like you were talking about before, just the showing up and the being on time and the trying and
knowing your strengths and weaknesses, right? Like maybe my son had to learn that his strength wasn't going to be
basketball
or being the kid who slam dunks, right? He's not going to be the best player on the team, but what is he going to be? What is his strength? Where does he show up as a valuable player, right? And so if I have a counseling center with X number of therapists, they can't all be the best therapist and they can't all be a supervisor. But what can they be? What are they working towards? I think that we have to figure out what are the outcomes that we're looking for. And I think we're all working towards an outcome, whether it's, I want to be able to pay my mortgage. I want to be able to buy that car I really love. I want to take that vacation.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be able to take my kids to Disney World. I want to be able to pay for my kids' college. I want to pay off my student loans. There's lots of outcomes we strive for. And so I think it's not just, well, I put an effort and that's good enough. Because is the effort really going to give you in life what you want? I think that everyone really does have goals. I think goals is part of what drives us.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's bringing us back to the human condition. So is it possible to take away the human desire to have a goal and to work towards something and to want something just because we've rewarded their effort? Or are we making it more likely that they'll work towards their goal because we've rewarded their effort? Effort gets me somewhere, so let me keep trying, as opposed to effort gets me nowhere, so let me shut down and stop trying because I'm inadequate.
So if the lesson you're trying to teach children is to keep trying and to keep going for it, then the participation trophy is exactly what's called for. Yep.
Yeah. All right, what else we got?
I flipped.
I read one today that was a little bit frustrating. It was in a message board, and somebody wrote, I am totally against participation trophies because kids today are fat and lazy and laying in bed, watching TV and playing video games, and they don't feel like they have to get up and try.
Ugh.
That didn't make sense to me.
No, I don't see the connection. I think kids are fat and lazy and sitting at home on their computers and on their phones and on social media and playing these interactive games, which has nothing to do with the fact that they're not up and out and playing sports.
I think maybe the point they were trying to make is, if everyone's going to get a trophy, there's no point in trying, so I'll just be fat in my bed.
I don't even know. It makes no real sense.
Right. I think, so let's talk about that. I don't think the fat kid. It sounds mean. So let's talk about that kid that isn't active, that's laying in bed and isn't socializing or participating in a group thing or whatever. Is it because they're lazy? Is it because they feel like there's no point in trying? And why do they feel like there's no point in trying? I'm having a hard time believing that it's the positive reinforcement of being rewarded for effort that's making them not want to participate. I feel like it would do the opposite. It
Opposite.
would lure them to want to go, like, oh, I can go be a part of that.
Hmm.
But I don't think that they're like, there's no point I give up because there's still so much reward in going and trying and seeing the results and scoring the basket, getting the points, being a part of the team, having that moment where everyone's high-fiving you and celebrating and trying to win and seeing what trophy you do get at the end of this season. There's so much to it, but I think there's so many other things going on there that could be causing that child to not want to participate. Maybe that child feels inadequate. Maybe their efforts are not rewarded, so they've shut down and given up.
And they are getting the reward from the sitting home and the playing the games.
Yeah.
They're getting those endorphins. They're getting that
The dopamine.
Yep.
Yeah,
They're
that's
getting
very
that rush
rewarding.
from, like, I made it to the next level, or, I'm talking to a friend in Japan on this weird Roblox thing, and I'm advancing in that.
So that's a good point, because this is another example of where positive reinforcement can be negative. Because sometimes positive reinforcement rewards behaviors that are not healthy, right? Like a slot machine, right?
You keep throwing money in.
Yeah, not that I want to be judgy of gambling, because sometimes gambling in
Moderation.
Thank you. Couldn't find the word. Gambling in moderation is okay, right? But sometimes people get really trapped into that cycle because they pull the slot, they get the reward, ding, ding, ding. They win some money, and now they want to keep going, right? So sometimes positive reinforcement can bring about
a negative outcome
because it is motivating the individual toward unhealthy behaviors. So what's the unhealthy behavior we're rewarding and getting more of in participation trophies? Show up.
Be active. Be a part of a
Be
team.
part of a team. Try your
Learn
best.
communication skills. What I found really interesting in looking at this stuff too is that that this isn't just, this is kind of being blamed on millennials and the parents of millennials for kind of rewarding that. But participation trophies have been around for 100 years.
Yes.
In the 1920s, we both read
Yes.
similar articles about a basketball team that started doing participation trophies, and they've been around forever. So
Yes.
for 100 years, this isn't something just new that parents of millennials have created to create entitled children.
It's a new conversation, but it's not a new concept. So I think there's definitely a misconception there that it has become a new concept, right? So I'm 50 years old, was born in 1974, and I got participation trophies. So I was in a bowling league. I wasn't very sporty, so this was the one sport that I played.
Is it a sport?
So I was on a bowling league with a few of our friends that we grew up with. And at the end of the season, there would be trophy night at the ground round.
Oh.
And we would all go to the ground
It's
round.
in a world before nut allergies, when they had peanuts on the floor.
Yes, and popcorn and Snoopy and balloons. And we would go to the ground round, and there would be trophy night. And everybody got that little stand with a pin on it. But they also gave out, highest average, highest score, most improved, blah, 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 blah. We had all of those in different age categories. In the 8 to 10-year-olds, best average, and the 10 to 12, so there was a bunch of trophies.
Awards for actual accomplishments.
Yeah, and I remember getting the best average for my age group one year and being so excited about that. That was an amazing accomplishment. I'm sure I have my box of bowling trophies in my attic somewhere. But I remember putting them on my shelf in my room and being like, I'm a good bowler. And it was very exciting. But I also got the little participation trophy, and everyone got the participation trophy. But there were years where I only got the participation trophy, and it didn't make me not want to try to be better.
Best average.
I wanted to get the special trophy. I wanted best average, best score, best, whatever. Everybody wants that. Who doesn't want that? But I think that the years I didn't get that, I was disappointed. So the participation trophy didn't protect me from disappointed. I was disappointed.
You understood the difference between the
understood the
participation trophy and the big glittery one.
I've got to say most people do, I think. We're not tricking anyone. And I did want to try harder. I did want to strive, but I definitely think, it felt good to walk away with something because it was an accomplishment, again, to make the time, to make the commitment, to show up, to follow it through, to be there, to accept not getting the bigger awards,
Hmm.
right? To watch my teammates get the award and congratulate them and walk away with my little guy, right? Um, I think that there's merit to that, and it didn't kill my motivation, and it didn't give me as trust me, I don't.
You still felt prepared for disappointments in
I've
life?
had a lot of disappointments in my life. I sat in that training this weekend with my own little traumas that I had to work through, despite the fact that I got my participation trophy at bowling. Plenty of rejection, and there's plenty of disappointment, and there's plenty of, not getting the outcome you want. There's failures, there's losses, there's so many things we deal with. But, being rewarded for the good things you do and finding your strengths is an important part of this life. And I don't think that acknowledging that or rewarding that is a bad thing. And it's not new. So
No,
why does it feel new, right? Where is this conversation coming from,
I don't know.
right? There's this, yeah, I guess, mentality that's just sort of been born, right, in society. This feeling of
Kids are feeling entitled.
kids are feeling entitled, or that they're too emotional, or that we're focusing too much on wanting to protect them and their feelings, right? That we're too focused on mental health and that it's not a good thing. And I think that's probably more of where the issue
Hmm.
is, right? It's where is this pressure coming in society where we can acknowledge that there's so many studies that back up how real positive reinforcement is and how positive it can be and how much disappointment and pain and rejection and loss actually does face us in life, but yet wanting to do something about it or help others or communicate or teach people that standing up and advocating for yourself and asking for help is something that should be shamed,
Hmm.
right? I think that's,
Really the issue.
that's really the issue. But again, I don't think that the people who think the participation trophies are bad are coming from a bad place. I think that they truly do believe that this is not healthy for them or their children. And they worry, I think, about whether or not their children are prepared because I think they acknowledge and notice how hard this world is.
Hmm.
The world is hard.
And feel like that's somehow protecting them from learning how to face disappointments and life.
Yeah. Yeah. And I understand that there's a worry around the idea of entitlement because entitlement um, isn't healthy, right? If we go through life thinking that we're just entitled to something
Putting in the effort and
without,
doing the work and
right, that's not a healthy way to live. And the only person you're hurting by going through life with a delusional sense of entitlement to things that you don't just get because you exist um, is hurtful to that individual who feels entitled because feeling entitled doesn't give you what you need in life,
mm,
right? It's going to bring about the disappointment we're talking about because what are we entitled to in this life,
nothing necessarily.
right? I think that we'd like to think we're entitled to a safe place and respect, but none of these things are guaranteed, right? So again, it's really important, I think, for anybody who is really worried about their child and thinking that this is bad for them and their child is getting a participation trophy and they're worried about the effect it's going to have on their child, right? What tips can we give to those parents that are worried? What can they look for to make sure that the things that they're worried about are not happening?
I think having the conversation with their child who, again, understands the difference between the MVP and the little gold ribbon that they might walk away with.
Right. So if you feel that your child isn't prepared for disappointment, start to pay attention to where is the disappointment showing up in their life. Is there disappointment? If there's zero disappointment in your children's lives, that's a miracle. Kudos to you for creating a perfect scenario. But look for it, right? Look for the disappointments that are showing up in your children's lives and look for signs that they are handling it. And if they aren't, then the answer isn't give them a trophy or don't give them a trophy. The answer is teach your child the skill to handle disappointment.
To be able to manage that emotion, that sometimes life is not going to work out. Sometimes you're not going to get picked, or you're going to see all of your friends somewhere all together on Snapchat and not be invited.
Yeah, right. We have to teach our children how to manage the emotion that comes up for them when something is hard. Can they tolerate the discomfort of disappointment? And if you're finding that they can't, right, sit with them in that disappointment, give it language, give it words, teach them how to communicate. I'm feeling disappointed. It's really painful. I feel really sad. I'm feeling not good about myself. Let's talk about it and let's figure out what can we do? Is there something that we can do to help you to be better at this thing that you feel you're not good enough at? Or can we look at where you do have strengths
You are good
and work harder at
on
those
building
things
those.
and build on the things that are better suited for you, right? Can we find the right direction for you? Teaching your child the skills where disappointment does show up and where emotions do show up is not making them soft. It is preparing them for life. And I think at the end of the day, as much as I'd like to believe the participation trophy could be super helpful, I think it's probably pretty insignificant.
Mm-hmm.
But the debate in and of itself
Is real.
Represents
so much more to people.
The fear, right? Like I think wherever there's a hot debate, I think under that hot debate is fear. So what I ask is, where is the fear that people are coming in with in life, right? And so I think that's the question, and that's maybe our next podcast.
That sounds good.
Stay tuned. So to wrap up today, I think we want to thank our listeners and our viewers for being here. And we want to remind you that we are going to be releasing new episodes regularly. So please remember to subscribe wherever you're watching or listening to us, whether it's YouTube or Apple or Spotify or Amazon. Click that little subscribe button so that you can be reminded when there's a new episode. And we'll see you there. I'm Stacy.
And I'm Heather.
Join us next time where we continue to unravel the mystery of
why do people do that?
Why do people do that?